right, everybody, if you'll just have a seat, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you don't know who I am Stephanie Johnson. I'm with Community Engagement here at the city. You probably see me commenting on Facebook and all of our social media. If you have anything that you want the community to know about, whether it be pictures or local events, please send them my way. I'm happy to always share anything that's going on in the community with the rest of your neighbors. Today, thank you all for coming. This is our hurricane prep event. We are lucky to have Kate Dean here from the Brevard EOC. And if you haven't heard of the EOC before, it is the Brevard County Emergency Management. And Kate's going to tell you a little bit about that. She's going to kick off our hurricane season. She is the planning coordinator for the Brevard EOC, so please welcome Kate.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing? Good. Are we excited for hurricane season? No. Well, neither are we. We're not like some weirdos over at the EOC, like rooting for it to come our way, but we are prepared. Yeah, right. Just a little kickoff. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about emergency management, what we do, some common myths and misconceptions that we hear a lot at the EOC, especially when a hurricane is coming our way, and then our 5 steps to preparedness, how you guys can get ready for the upcoming hurricane season. Feel free to ask me any questions while I'm doing my presentation. We'll most likely get to whatever your question is, but I don't mind pausing and answering them right away. So, with that, emergency management, the way that we do it in Brevard is we focus on all hazards, readiness, and community preparedness. Brevard is actually a little bit unique. We have a lot of very rare hazards here. We like to launch big rockets into the air, so it poses a little bit of a risk for our residents. As you guys are aware, we actually activate for every launch. So we bring in staff, we bring in some of our partners and liaisons into the EOC every time we have a launch activation. We also, in the southern part of our county, we have we're in the 50-mile emergency planning zone for the St. Lucie nuclear power plant. So we do some preparedness efforts for that as well. Like I said, we activate, we're I think the second or the third most activated EOC in the country. And in the last 50 years, we've had 30 federal disaster declarations, which makes us the top 3% in the United States. So we definitely see a lot of action. A lot of that is hurricanes, which is what I'll be focusing on today, but we have a lot of other hazards today. I brought some pamphlets that I'll hand out at the end. It's our All Hazards Readiness Guide, and it goes through all of our top hazards here in Brevard and what you can do before, during, and after. Like I said, we have an all hazards approach. That means doesn't matter what the hazard is, whether it's a hurricane or a tornado, we take the same steps when we're responding and recovering. The differences can be in scale and type of support, so how big we respond, how many resources that we're requesting, all of that can change, but for the most part, it's an all hazards approach. It just allows us to simplify response operations and maximize efficiency. So with that, we'll kind of start into our myths and misconceptions. This is my favorite part. How many of you have heard or that you think that we can't get hurricanes here because NASA put the Kennedy Space Center here? Like, why would they put it here if we could get hurricanes? So that's not true. Clearly, we can get hurricanes. If any of you were here a few years ago, we can definitely feel the impacts from hurricanes. NASA put KSC here because of its space location, its ability to put rockets into the space easily. That's about it. Not because of hurricanes. So, and next time you hear somebody say that, just be like, no, that's not true. Another one we like is if we live in an area outside the cone of uncertainty, we don't have to worry, we're safe. So the cone well, yes, it changes a lot, but it's also not exactly the path. It's just the most likely path, and it's not indicative of the size of the storm. So just so the cone is going like this, the storm can be this big. This is just the likelihood of where it's going to land. So it's important to note if you're anywhere near that cone, that you're getting prepared and starting to pay attention. Another one that we get a lot of, and this one was a surprise to me, is do I live on a barrier island? A lot of our, and a hint, we're on a barrier island right now. So just in case anybody was wondering. That's a question we get a lot because when we put out our evacuation notices, the most likely one that we're going to put out is for our barrier islands or low-lying flood-prone areas and mobile and manufactured homes. Well, when we put that out, people are like, well, am I on a barrier island? And we're like, well, where do you live? They say, Merritt Island. I'm like, there's a key word in there. That is, yes, island, yes. So if you live in Cape Canaveral, Merritt Island, Cocoa Beach, Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor Beach, Indian Atlantic, or Melbourne Beach, you live on a barrier island. Causeways are closed before storms. This is probably our biggest and most asked question in the EOC on Facebook to 211, everywhere, asking right before the storm comes, are the causeways closed? As soon as we put our evacuation notice out, when are you guys closing the causeways? We don't close causeways, not before a storm, for multiple reasons. One, we want to give you the most amount of time to evacuate and to find safety if you're on a barrier island and we're calling for an evacuation zone. Two, that would require us to put somebody at all of our bridges telling you that they're closed. We don't put cops and firefighters on bridges in the middle of hurricanes. It's just not something that happens here. But what we do is we close causeways after the storm. And that's just so we can check the integrity of the bridges. Usually, I know during Hurricane Matthew, it took about 5 or 6 hours. For Hurricane Irma, it was only a few hours. So usually they'll pre-stage DOT, some of our other traffic engineer, bridge type people, as the storm is exiting the county, those people are following it, checking those bridges, so that way we can get to using our causeways a lot faster. This is mainly just a safety concern, so that way if anything happened during the storm to those bridges, we're not sending people back over them as soon as the storm passes. But before the storm, we're not closing causeways. Promise. But if you're going to remember anything, remember this one because that's the most asked question. If I evacuate, I have to leave Brevard County and go to Orlando or Georgia. So did anybody evacuate for Matthew or Irma? Did you leave Brevard County? Absolutely. Legoland? Did you go outside? Did anybody leave Florida? Did anybody go north of the Mason-Dixon? Yeah, Stephanie, come on. Okay, so, well, the storms don't stop at the state line. So if you go to Georgia, if you go to North Carolina, sometimes they're going there too. We try to remind you that it's safe to go tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. So if you live in Cape Canaveral, you can cross over and be in a non-evacuation zone, find safety there, and be safe. Spending all of your time on 95 or 75, getting stuck in traffic makes it more dangerous than going across the causeway, finding a friend, finding a family member, and staying with them. Does that make sense? You don't always have to evacuate, to, where'd we go? Maryland. We don't always have to go to Maryland. Yeah, hurricane, yeah. I'll tell you that, and we'll talk a little bit about evacuation planning, but it's just important to note, to have a plan where you're gonna go, especially if you're a barrier island resident, but that doesn't always mean states and states and states away. So delays in service. This is something that we need to be aware of, especially if you were here during Irma. That emergency response can be delayed to storm conditions, damaged or blocked roadways, or available resources. So what that means is that if you decide to stay, you need to be aware that there could be a delay in emergency response. If the winds are too high, then high-profile vehicles like ambulances and fire trucks can't drive. Most of our fire departments on the beach side evacuate and go to the mainland anyway. So that means they have to cross the bridge and come and find you during high winds, dangerous activities. So it's important that that's something that you're aware of when you decide to stay. Shelters will have everything, so I don't need to bring anything. What we like to say is that shelters are lifeboats, not cruise ships. So it is not a hurricane in a shelter. We provide shelter to our community so that way you can be safe and find refuge during the storm. There's meals provided, there's places for you to sleep, but there are not cots, there are not, it's not cable television, there's nothing like that. So it's important that you bring all of the things that you need to live a comfortable daily life at the shelter. And we'll go through, the step on what you need to bring to a shelter. When are shelters announced? We get this question a lot. We get the question, where's my nearest shelter? I'm building my plan, which is great, but I need to know where my nearest shelter is. Well, that depends. During Matthew, we opened up 22 shelters. For Irma, we opened up 15. We used to put out in our hurricane guidebooks, where all the shelters were. We had them in our books for years. And then during Matthew, we didn't open all of our shelters. So people were going to shelters that they thought were open because they were in the book, and no one was there. So because we open different shelters depending on the type of incident, we don't list our shelters anymore. We'll always announce our shelters at least 24 hours in advance, sometimes earlier, and we will put it everywhere. Like, you'll want us to stop telling you where the nearest shelter is, because we want you to be able to find it and find the correct information. The easiest way to do that is always follow us on social media. The news media will be aware, and you can always call 211, which is a 211 you can call 24/7 about anything, and during a hurricane or during any kind of event in Brevard County, you can call them about anything related to that event. Don't rush back. So some people think, as soon as the storm's gone, I should come right back. I got to see what's going on with my house. Well, a lot of times that there's not going to be a lot of traffic signals. After Irma, almost all of our traffic signals were damaged or without power. Our roadways become a dangerous situation. Thousands of residents were without power and experienced several days of loss of water pressure. Things like that those type of situations are what you can expect after a storm. So you don't necessarily want to rush back from your hurricane to come back and just to be miserable in your house. Prepare for loss of power. So how many of you have a generator? You have a generator, you're still left? Okay. Okay, don't want to boil water, I get it. So you want to be prepared for loss of power, and that doesn't mean just, the air conditioning or your refrigerator and things like that. It's all of the different stuff. If your health needs are reliant on power, all of that is something that you need to take into consideration when a hurricane is coming your way. So you can always visit fpnl.com/storm for tips on how to prepare and to report outages. It's also a place where you can go after the storm to check. You can type in your address and see what the status of your power is. When we're activated, I pretty much am at the EOC for 2 weeks. And my husband goes, to his grandmother's house with my dog, mostly because I need my dog to be safe. But I'm checking, where, is my house, does my house have power? Am I going to have to throw out everything in my freezer because no one's there, no one can tell me? All that kind of stuff. FPNL's website stays updated, and they'll tell you when you can expect to get your power back. It's a really good resource. Prepare for loss of water. You guys are on Coco's system, right? So we all experienced a little water shortage during Irma. Fun fact, the EOC is also on Coco's water. So we also experienced a loss of water during Irma. To prepare for loss of water, you can fill gallon jugs, other containers, your bathtub, that kind of stuff, your washer, you can fill that with water. just to be prepared to do things like wash your dishes, wash your hands, flush your toilet, to have all of that kind of stuff available for you. Do you live in a flood zone? So you can go to our website to see if you live in a flood zone. Almost every Florida property can flood. Just if you don't live in a flood zone, your property can flood. And regular homeowners insurance doesn't cover floods. You have to purchase separate flood insurance. So those are things that you need to be aware of. Flooding can occur from heavy rainfall, rising waters. We're on a barrier island. It can occur from storm surge. All of that stuff can contribute to flooding in your home. Is my insurance enough? Now is a great time to review your insurance policy. Review the type of deductible that you have. Review what your replacement costs are, the cash value for covered loss, all of that kind of stuff. Start taking photographic evidence of what your house, has now. A lot of stuff that if you wanted to increase your homeowner's insurance policy, it won't take effect for 30 days. So that's already into hurricane season, but that's okay. Today's still the day to do it. And then keep all of the stuff like your name, address, and claims reporting telephone number for your insurance agent in a safe and accessible place. Lessons in FEMA assistance. So FEMA assistance is not your insurance policy. FEMA assistance, a lot of people are surprised at the amount that they will get from FEMA, and it's consistently not what they're expecting. FEMA does not reimburse for food that goes bad. They don't reimburse for evacuation expenses. So that means they won't cover your gas, stuff like that. It's rarely equal to replacement costs. It doesn't replace your roof. It will not pay your insurance deductible, and it is not fast and will want copies of everything. The key there is that it is not fast. So again, review your insurance policy. Know that FEMA is not an insurance policy, and taking all of this into consideration. So with that, does anybody have any questions yet? Okay, so we'll go into our pathway to preparedness. So step 1 is know your risk. And in the book that I'm going to hand out to you guys, you'll be able to see all of our hazards here in Brevard County, so you can kind of gauge what we're most likely to encounter here, and you can understand your risk. Step 2 is build a kit. So in your basic kit, you should have things like water for at least 3 days, food for 3 days, battery-powered radios, weather radios, extra batteries, flashlights, first aid kits, all of that kind of stuff should be with you. Additional stuff that you may need are prescriptions for your medications and your glasses. If you have pets or children, additional stuff for them, shot records for your pets, stuff to keep you comfortable and stuff to keep you entertained. Because there's not a lot, that I'm used to doing these days without power, but, break out the puzzle. Time to get excited. It's also important that you note things for your pets. Like I mentioned, my dog, #1 in our household. So he has his own hurricane go kit. He gets excited when he sees it because it's very similar to his grandma house go kit, which means a lot of treats. But he has extra food, he has extra treats, extra bottles of water just for him, so he's prepared. Step 3 is to have a plan. So this is the most important step that you can take. It's the plan for your family and your property. Where will you evacuate? How will you get in touch with each other if you're separated? Like I said, I go to the EOC. I stay there for pretty much 5 days before landfall, to about a week after landfall. So I'm there. My husband usually goes over to Lakeland and goes to stay with his grandmother, mostly because they're going to have power and my dog needs air conditioning. He's a big dog, very spoiled. So they go over there. He knows that we're not going to talk. We're not going to have a lot of cell service here in Brevard County. I will get in touch with you when you can, but that's our plan. That's our family plan. He knows that it's his job to get everything that's outside inside, and to evacuate over to Mimi's house. He takes with him our homeowner's insurance policy. He takes with him his Hurricane Go Kit and the dog's Hurricane Go Kit. So that's our plan. If your plan includes going to a shelter, we have different types of shelters. We have general population shelters, we have pet-friendly shelters, and we have special needs shelters. So if you are a person with disabilities, barriers, or impairments, evaluate your personal needs, and when you're making a plan, assess what it'll take for you to live independently. Bring with you the essential items that you need for at least 3 days, like durable medical equipment or any kind of assistive technology, anything that you need to communicate because of your impairments. Remember, being ready is the key to maintaining your independence. If you have a pet, make a plan for your pets. Pets should not be left behind or unattended. Pet-friendly shelters are designed to accommodate household pets. I will tell you that we almost never tell a pet no. We had some goats during Irma, and I was on night shift when the shelters got the goats, and they called and they said, we have somebody here that has goats. And I said, well, like, what do you mean, like they have goats? And they're like, they said that they're their pets. And I was just like, well, do they have a crate? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, then they can come in. Like, come on in, goats. Unfortunately, my boss didn't really agree with me, and it kind of made the news, but it was fine. It was fine. I still stand with my decision. Those goats were safe. Owners are responsible for feeding, the care of, and cleanup, and the behavior of their pets. If you go to a pet-friendly shelter, you should bring your latest shot records, leash and collar, any kind of medications, a crate for each animal, any kind of pet food, cleaning supplies, that kind of stuff for your pet. For individuals with special needs, we have a special needs program designed for residents with specific health or medical conditions. If you meet any of the special needs criteria, you can, or if you need transportation assistance to a shelter, you can apply to be on our special needs registry. What that means is you apply, you say that I have these health needs, I'm power dependent, or I've recently had some kind of medical situation, or I need transportation to a shelter, and our special needs program coordinator, he goes through those applications and makes sure that you're taken care of. If you're a special needs client with a pet, because our special needs shelters are not pet friendly. That's mostly because a lot of people that are there are on respirators, and dog hair and respirators don't really mix. But what we do is that BCSO Animal Services will take care of your animal while you're in the special needs shelter. So as SCAT is picking you up, BCSO Animal Services is right behind the bus picking your dog up. And then on the back end, as they're dropping you off, they're dropping your dog off. So you're pretty much never, without them, especially except for when you're at the shelter. But your pet's not alone, your pet's taken care of, and you're safe at the shelter.
Who was that again?
BCSO, the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office, sorry, speaking acronyms. The Sheriff's Office Animal Services. So it's important to note that you should evacuate early. When officials issue an evacuation order, evacuate. If you live in a storm surge zone, if you live in a low-lying floodplain area, if you live in a mobile or manufactured home, or if you live on a barrier island, which is where we are right now, or if you're a person with special medical needs, or if you don't feel safe in your home. If none of these things qualify you, but you know that your roof hasn't been replaced in 30 years, maybe you should evacuate. Step 4 is to stay informed. This is my favorite step. The easiest way to do that is to text the word Brevard EOC, one word, to 888-777. That's how you'll get all of our Twitter messages as text messages. So if you don't want to sign up for Twitter, if that's not something that you're interested in, I totally understand. That's how you get them as text messages. We send out things like preparedness tips, if there's anything big happening in the county, like a major road closure, if there's a wildfire going on. And then during a hurricane, that's where we're our most active, is on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at Brevard EOC, or like us on Facebook at Brevard County Emergency Management. You can always call 211 if you have any questions. You can also sign up for alert notifications by going to Alert Brevard. Cape Canaveral is actually a partner with us in Alert Brevard, and if there's anything happening in Cape Canaveral, they could send out messages using Alert Brevard as well. So Alert Brevard is a little bit of a higher situation. So if that's where we're sending our evacuation notices, if there's a missing child or elderly person in your area, if there's a boil water notice, all of that kind of stuff is going through Alert Brevard. It's kind of a higher level notification system. Step 5 is to get involved. Building a culture of preparedness is how we make Brevard County a more resilient community. How you do that is you join volunteer disaster support organizations like the Red Cross or the United Way or Salvation Army. It's building a volunteer team with your faith-based community group, or you can join the Brevard BOAD. You can start a preparedness project or talk to your neighbors, or you can do stuff like this. Come to your community events that has stuff about hurricane preparedness. So again, our pathways to preparedness is to know your risks, build a kit, make a plan, stay informed, get involved. That's it. I'm exhausted. Does anybody have any questions for me? No? Really? Okay, there we go.
We're new to living in Florida.
Welcome.
We've owned property here for about 15 years. But I was surprised to hear you say that you have a fixed location where your husband goes.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking it would be better, not where I'm from, to watch where they think the storm is heading.
Right.
And get away from that area.
So I'll tell you, he doesn't really have a fixed place. That's just where he went for Matthew and Irma, because that's kind of, it was a safe place for both Matthew and Irma, because Matthew and Irma both tracked up through the state. I'll tell you that if it was something like a storm that was going to hit, the Brevard-Volusia line, he would go south, and he would have to stay with my mom in Palm Beach County. That's just the way it goes. My dog needs a safe space. So it's not a fixed space. I would tell you that he goes there because they have hurricane impact windows. They have a generator. They're a little bit elevated, and that's why he goes there. Not because he loves his Mimi, which he really does. But any other questions? Yes, sir.
What is the status with the water pipes over at Sykes Creek? The road is still closed. Is there a time frame when that's going to be reopened?
It's a little bit above my pay grade, but I know that they're working on it. I know that that was a big issue during Irma, and that the Army Corps of Engineers was working on it and working on hiring local contractors to get it fixed. Yes.
Just a note about going to the shelters. One time we went to one of those pet shelters. We neglected to bring bedding. Those floors are really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So people should bring some sort of bedding with them.
Yep, and you'd be surprised. During Matthew, I worked a shelter for about 12 hours, and it was the first 12 hours. So it was about 36 hours before we were gonna see any impact. So most of the people were coming the next day, but some people were coming and they were prepared, and they had Barca loungers, and they moved basically their entire living rooms into the shelter. And I was like, and there was probably like 15 people, and I was like, tomorrow there's gonna be 300. We're gonna need to get cozy here, people. But we see a lot of people bring the lawn chairs. Lawn chairs are really portable and, can lay out kind of thing. People bring sleeping bags. It's kind of like camping indoors. People can bring certain things. People bring the mattress pads, from their mattress, and put it on the ground. All of that kind of stuff works. Yes, ma'am.
Could you bring an air mattress or would that
Yeah.
take up too much room?
Nope, you can bring an air mattress. In general, we give a 6-foot space per person. So then you would get 12 if you're coming in twos. That's kind of how people were getting away with their living rooms a little bit. But they're like, I have a family, I get all this space. I'm like, wait. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have this information on any handouts?
Yep, so I'll give you guys these handouts, and all of the steps are in there. And it goes through, it has all of these, how to sign up for our text alerts, where to follow us, our phone numbers, anything like that, it's all in there. Yes, sir.
I guess this would be more city specific, because I think you do all of Brevard County.
Mhm.
Get more specific information for city of Canaveral, would be through the website, or the Facebook page?
Yeah, so during emergencies, we will be on Twitter, and Twitter feeds directly to our website. So anything that we put on Twitter is going on our website. Facebook will remind you to say, hey, go to Twitter or go to our website to stay up to speed. That's the quickest way to get news and information.
Are you still using Netflix?
Yes. Oh, it's in a transitional phase, but we will. So what she meant is with the text messaging, please sign up for that because we'll be communicating through that as well. So if evacuation information is, hey, the island's safe, come back. But a lot of what they did, and this is secondhand, so during the last hurricane, is the director of community services was getting texts from people saying, hey, can you run by my house and check on it? Because, from an emergency standpoint, we weren't open yet. The island was not ready to, get an influx of residents back, but he was going and taking pictures and texting it to people. So we're super involved and ready to do that. Can I answer any other city-specific questions? Sure.
Yep, you can go to our website, at Brevard County, or it's embrevard.com, and there's, PDF versions of it.
But a great thing, what you see on the screen right now, go ahead and whip your cell phone out and sign up for the text alerts. All you have to do is text Brevard EOC, and the number that you're texting it to is 888-777, and then you're signed up. That's it. That's all you have to do, and you'll get these alerts. Now, I will warn you, you're also going to get them during every launch. When they go on,
When we activate.
when you activate an hour before a launch,
Yep.
and then right after the launch, they deactivate. So you're going to get those texts as
Yeah.
well. So just know that you're going to get them for every activation.
During Irma, Publix stayed open and several restaurants stayed open in Cocoa Beach. I'm not sure what we have now that they've moved down here, up here. I'm not sure what stays open here for us.
And it really depends on the storm, right? So sometimes they have power, sometimes they don't. It really just depends on how hard they get hit. It's not a guarantee whether or not they can stay open ever. It's really like, hey, we get to stay open.
Is that something you would communicate to those people who decide to stay as far as what you know that's open?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we try and get out as much information as humanly possible. It's like, here's pictures of the beach, here's the crossovers, here's, the parks, here's the roadways, here's what's happening. So we're trying, because we know everyone is really hungry for information. If you're not here and your residency has been impacted while you're away. So we know that everyone wants that information. So we try and over communicate. That's why Twitter, it's easy to just boop, 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 boop.
That worked out real well last time, the Twitter feed worked out.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and like I said, it's on our website. And we're about to switch to a new website, so it will also be on that new website as well.
My suggestion would be to be prepared that the restaurants and food areas are not open. I know during Irma, I got a message from our community services director and asked if there was food up where I was because the public works folks were here and the restaurants and the grocery stores were not open. So I brought food in for them. And that was like 3 or 4 days after the storm hit. So I would just be prepared.
Yeah.
They could be open and maybe not.
Go ahead.
This text alert, I could go on there today. So I put in those six digits, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have to say, sign me up.
Nope.
Just
Nope. It'll reply with, it'll give you a confirmation text saying you've signed up.
You have to type in Brevard EOC, and then send it to that number, 888-777.
And Zach can help you, yep. Yeah. And if anyone needs help doing that, we're happy to stay afterwards, and you hand us your phone, we'll help you hook it up. What other questions do you guys have? Sure.
Question about, don't you have a pretty shabby headquarters, or they're building you a new one?
That is accurate. And if, like, we could get New 13 over here, so you could say we have shabby headquarters, that'd be great. That was a nice word. You can use the bad words when they're there. Yes, we have one of the oldest EOCs in the state of Florida. We're in a bunker, which, like, at first is really cool, and then you're like, I miss the sun. So we are in the process of building a new EOC. We're kind of like pinching our pennies, getting all of the funding. So we've started groundwork. It's kind of diagonally across from where our current EOC is in Rockledge. So we've started some of the groundwork, but we're still waiting on funding for actually building. So we've got all the site work, we've got all of the plans done, all of that kind of stuff is ready. It's just the actual building that we need.
So hopefully by next season.
Most likely it'll be another 2 to 3 years. Yep, we just got about $1 million from the legislature. I think we need about 10 million more. Yeah.
Now, what about the VOAD?
The VOAD?
I heard the VOAD, is that what you're talking about, VOAD?
Uh,
I heard the VOAD area is unbelievable and technologically quite advanced.
So maybe we're the United Way. So the United Way leads the VOAD, and they just moved into a new building in Cocoa, and it's beautiful. Yeah, they're with, I think there's like a healthcare coalition there as well. But yeah, it's like a new like green building. It's really, really cool.
Well, they have emergency response there too.
No, they come to the EOC. Yeah. They do like VOAD stuff, like they do VOAD meetings there. After the storm, they probably go to that building and kind of, they can get truckloads of donations and stuff there. But as far as like during the storm, they're in the EOC with us. Any other questions? Okay, well, it was a pleasure letting you have me. I don't know. I lost it there. I've hit it. I've hit my limit.
Thank you, Kate, for joining us.
Thank you. Apparently I can put words together.